Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Danjo. This is their part number EL125-622. This is a 2¼ inch full lip strike with a 2½ inch extended lip. So that's what the item looks like in its packaging. The EL in the part number stands for the display pack. It's meant to be, on a hook in a retail space. You can also purchase these in a less expensive packaging. It's just a paper bag, basically, is what it is. You might call it not bulk packaging, but you don't go to the expense of having it carded like this. Okay, this would be appropriate for a locksmith showroom, hardware store sort of application. So I have one removed from the packaging here, and we can take a look at it right here. Fingerprints are not included on that. I've kind of removed those. So this is a full lip strike. You can see why I believe we call it a full lip strike. We also at times will call this a D strike. If you use your imagination, you can see why we might call it a D strike. 2¼ tall, that is the common size for a full lip strike, although Danjo does make full lip strikes in other sizes, or at least one other size. Oh, actually, no, other sizes. 2¼ tall. Okay. Now you can see that the width of this strike, we said that it was 2½. Well, this is measuring 3 inch, and that's because strikes are always measured from the center line of the hole here to the edge of the lip, and that's where 2½ inch comes into play. That's how strikes are defined, by the center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip. A standard strike, by comparison, it is about 1¼ inch, 1 3/16, 1 5/16, about 1¼ inch. The length of the lip of the strike needs to be considered when you are detailing hardware for a job. You have to figure out what lip length is necessary for the material, and then, of course, proceed accordingly. Specify it accordingly, order it accordingly. But general Swiss Army knife approach is standard about 1¼ inch. But you can see why you might need a shorter strike if you were to think about a pair of hollow metal doors with a flat astragal welded to the face of the pull side of the active door. Well, a lip's not going to work on that if you've not slotted that strike out for the lip to protrude or project out through the astragal itself. In that case, you'll need a shorter lip, and it's 7/8 for 1 3/4 doors is the right answer. But if you had if you had jam extensions, or if you had a wall condition that required a longer lip, you would need an extended lip strike. You might also have a design on a door that they have, some unusual rabbited design, and where they've placed the door within the frame would permit, without an extended lip strike, would permit the latch bolt to prematurely hit the casework. And you will also kind of see that sort of concept when you think about a custom kitchen where they have cabinetry and everything, including the front of the appliances, and their pantry door is meant to kind of blend into everything else. Well, you might end up needing some sort of hardware to compensate for extended, greater than average thicknesses and things of that nature. So an extended lip strike like this could be certainly used when you have a couple of reasons. You might have here's a common reason. Building a house, the exterior doors and frames go to the job, and they're 4 13/16. Turns out the walls were 6 inch thick. Okay, so the question is, do we send back the doors and frames and get 6 inch deep frames, or do we add jam extensions, which is nothing other than a piece of wood that's applied to the face of the jam to give it the impression that it's deeper, but what increases at that point is your inset. So a typical inset is about 3/32 of an inch, but if you increase all of that by about 1 3/16, that's where you're kind of going to come up with a strike that is literally about 1 3/16 greater than standard, and that actual application happens. So you either have a frame with jam extensions, which translates into a greater inset, or you have a casing condition. You've applied something to the wall, brick molding, you've run the wall back up hard all the way to the face of the frame so that the frame blends into the wall. Whatever the case might be, you might end up needing an extended lip strike. Let's just switch to the screen view and we'll take a closer look and illustrate the two concepts that we're talking about. So this is the item that we are looking at here, and we'll pull up our little paint program here and give an idea of what we're talking about. So you could have, you know, that door that we were talking about. Okay? Awful, awful. Let's try it again. Okay. So you've got your door. Door is going to swing out. We're obviously dealing with an inset here from the face of the frame to the face of the door. Very small amount, 3/32 of an inch. Maybe it's 0, but it's very small. That's called the inset, the face of the frame to the face of the door. Well, that's 4 13/16 is what that dimension is. Turns out the walls are 6 inch thick, so let's add some jamb extensions. And that solves the problem. The homeowner is either not aware that extensions have been added or has agreed to it, whatever the case might be. But that's where your extended lip strike is going to come into play, because what has occurred here is that your effective inset has now increased. It was 3/32, now it's an inch and, you know, a quarter, or just heavy on inch and a quarter. Okay, so that might be where you would need a longer lip. Now, in this sort of scenario, you might actually require also a raised barrel hinge. Now, you'll see raised barrel hinges as well. So a normal hinge, if you were to add a jamb extension, a normal hinge barrel is going to be right here, right? It's going to be in the way because you've added your jamb extension here. A raised barrel hinge basically is a hinge that has the barrel raised out and over, moving the vertical axis of pivoting towards the center of the opening. And I can quickly show you what a raised barrel hinge looks like on a template. If I can remember the part number easily. Here we go. So that's what a raised barrel hinge does. Moves that pivot point off. And this, if we had a jamb extension, let's say we added it right here, now you can see what's happening here. That's what that is intended to do. So now whether you directly have a deep inset or you inherit one like this, it comes back the same. And you also might need wide throw hinges as well. But another application might simply be, you know, you have generally extended lip strikes is when someone has brought the wall treatment up to the face of the jamb, is generally what's happened. They want to blend all this in. They don't want to see anything, and that's generally where you will get the requirement of a extended lip strike. Now, back to the item we're looking at, what I didn't mention is the 622. That means it's powder-coated black. That's a black powder coat finish. Okay. Black is a very common, popular color nowadays, and it's been all the rage for a little while and probably will continue to do so. We say that black is the new oil-rubbed bronze, and something will come along and replace it, I suppose, at some point. Satin nickel used to be really popular, and there was a time when you couldn't get satin nickel, and it was take satin chrome or satin brass or antique brass, and those were your choices. But it's nice that Donjo answers the call of what the market is asking for. This is the link to the template here. Let's take a look at that. It's going to give us our dimensional properties beyond what I've already talked about. They say the thickness is 50 thousandths. Let's see what my caliper says about that. I'm going to bet it's thinner. Not that I know it's thinner, but I believe it is. And I'm wrong. It's actually thicker, 0.054. A little bit thicker than I expected. This does also refer to 605 for polished brass, 609 for antique brass, 619 satin nickel, 620 antique nickel, 630 stainless, and DU is a dark bronze powder coat over stainless. And then the BPC or the 622 black powder coat needs to be added here as well. And that's your EL125 strike. Now the extended description that's here, extended lip strike, it's also available with a radiused corner. Radiused corners are very common. You can certainly have a radiused corner where the pre-hanger has mortised the jamb with a 1/2-inch 2-flute carbide router bit and didn't go back and square out the corners. So you can have this same strike with just 1/4-inch radius on the corners here. The product catalog will give us that part number. It does include a couple of screws. I'll show that to you in a moment. Display packaging. The rest we've covered. When you buy one, we'll send you one. Product catalog is here. EL-125. Search for that, and here we go. The EL is that display package. If you go with the same strike in the clear packaging, the poly bag, the same strike would be a 90-125. Going to be a little bit less expensive. Not a big deal if you need one or two, but it would be if you needed 100. Now the radiused corner strike I had mentioned, that's going to precede the part number as an RC. Let's test that theory to make sure that I'm correct. Oh, okay, so the suffix is RC. So you would be EL-125-625-RC, and that'll give you a radiused corner. We may or may not have it in the site as a radius corner. It appears as if we do not, so reach out to us and we will get that product added so that you can purchase it. The catalog, the product catalog that's here, will allow you to go over all of the Danjo strikes that are here. Very common because you might say to yourself, well, okay, I definitely don't need 2.5. I need something a little bit smaller. So the EL115 would be the part number for the 1.5-inch lip length. That's when you're just a tad, about a 1/4 inch longer than standard. They do go to 2-inch, 2.5. They even go to 1 3/4. Okay, so that's all very helpful. The rest of this catalog will show you other extended lip strikes, such as those 2 3/4 full lip strikes. That's a deadbolt size right there, very uncommon in a full lip strike. D strikes, ANSI strikes, extended lip T strikes, etc. Security strikes are here. If you're doing wood doors, wood frames, and you know that you're going to have some vandalism, you might want to install that immediately and straight away. Other accessory items. An interesting question the other day is there a UL listed thimble strike? And the answer to my knowledge is no, there's not. They do not have one. So if you have a fire rated door and frame and you need to add a deadbolt to it, that could end up being a challenge if you're doing it in the field. So be mindful of that. Okay. Let's switch back the video to the camera view and wrap up this video. Now, here are those screws that I had mentioned. A couple of small, tiny screws were included. Nice quality item from Danjo. You can order things like this from other manufacturers. You know, if you ordered a Schlage lock, you can certainly order an extended lip strike from them as well. But that's always going to be... Well, actually, you may not be able to in a full lip strike. A T strike you can, an ANSI strike, a 4 7/8 strike you can. Not sure about the full lip strikes. But the name Danjo is synonymous with this product line. It's, you know, they're generally in stock. They're ready to ship. They're inexpensive. You know, nothing really much to think about. So a lot of people end up purchasing them because it's just available, is the bottom line. So regardless of why you need this, here it is. Generally exclusively meant to keep your latch bolt from hitting your casework or your jamb or your wall prematurely, damaging the wall, damaging the hardware as well. And the strike's meant to keep that all humming along. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Danjo products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you know the name Danjo at all, you probably do for their door reinforcing wraparound plates and latch protectors. But they have a lot of things in addition to that, like extended lip strikes and 8 other major product categories. Did you know that they make pivots? Did you know that they make ladder poles? Did you know that they make hinges, signage, accessories for hollow metal frames and doors? On and on and on. Trim and auxiliary hardware, door stops, flat goods like kick plates, stretcher plates, mop plates, armor plates. We have a client who supplies, who's a contractor who does space build outs for a national chain of pet stores, but the pet stores that kind of focus on dogs, grooming, whatnot, and they will order a couple of dozen armor plates all at once because of the client base coming in with their dog. The dog's going to get on the door. The dog's going to destroy a wood door. In comes the large armor plate. We get all those from Donjo for this particular client. Any questions on the Donjo EL125 in a 622 black powder coat finish? And by the way, powder coat is an incredibly durable finish. Paint, it's paint. It's a powder. It's literally just dry powder that you would sweep off the floor that has an electrical charge, positive to negative. The paint has one charge. The base material has its opposite charge, so the paint really gets to it good. The only time that you can really break these down is if you strike it with a hammer, or you hit it, or you gouge it, or scratch it. Normal wear and tear, it's very durable, is what it is. Powder coat is very durable. Any questions on this or any other Donjo product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.